the top 6 longevity metrics for peak health to live above 100 years old. I'm Coach Ábris, founder of Demi Cycle Protocol, and over the past year we helped over 50 high achievers and corporate executives over the ages of 40 and 50 permanently get below 15% body fat, double their natural energy levels, and reach consistent 85 plus sleep scores and get in the best shape of their life permanently without counting calories, without having to take stimulants or sleep drugs or sedatives, or training more than 2 to 3 hours per week. And how we made it happen and why we made it happen is the most important question of today. So as men, we have this notion of we just want to be useful. This is our main purpose in life. And I wanted to take this one step further, acknowledging that we want to be useful for as long as possible. It's not a vanity metric to wanting to live to 100 years old. This might be also one of my personal purposes, and this is certainly some of my clients' personal goals. Why? Because most of my clients are way older than me, and they are in the 40-50 years old range, and they definitely feel it, that the energy levels are not the same anymore, testosterone is not the same anymore, but they still do want to have so many different experiences with their families. They want to be present for them. Some of them are still active in the businesses they are leading or they are owning, and they want to take this further. There's always one more fight, one more level, one more new purpose, and you want to enjoy this and want to be able to do this for as long as possible to your best knowledge, to your best abilities. And ultimately what satisfies a man is not fame, not money, not love itself, but being useful. And usually males sink into depression if they feel that they are not useful, and of course a lot is contributed to it by one's own personal health and health metrics. So today we're going to go through the 6 most important health metrics to track if you want to live a long and healthy and active life. So what's the point of living to 100 years, right? If you're not feeling good about your own body, if you're not feeling good in your own skin, if you're not fit, if you are basically not useful, right? If you can't be of help to your kids or your grandkids, basically, and you are tied to certain circumstances you need to be taken care of, then you can't really feel useful about yourself. Even though you've been useful during your most active years, the way you view yourself is gonna ultimately destroy you, because you see yourself as someone who is very old, very weak, needs to be basically pampered by your own kids or grandkids, and that's not a great thing to do. I have seen many personal examples of this, so let's try to avoid it. At Demi Cycle Protocol, we always want to prevent instead of just treating certain things. So let's get straight into that. What are the 6 most important health metrics for longevity? So first of all, this might be a little bit controversial and some of you might not agree with this, but these are just facts. This is body composition, right? So it's not your body weight, this is not your BMI, this is what your body, your skeletal mass is made out of. So the thing is that many of you are obsessed with body weight. How much do I weigh? What is my ideal body weight target? I want to go down from 240 pounds to 190 pounds. That's wrong. How do you want to look like? What do you want your body fat percentage to be? How much skeletal muscle mass you want to have, right? What is your ideal body composition? What do you want your body to be made out of? It doesn't really matter how big your body is, what is your body size, if the proportions of fat and muscle mass and water and also many different components are messed up. Of course, body fat and skeletal muscle mass are the 2 dominant variables in this equation. So what do you want to achieve? What is ideal here? So I would say for men, the ideal is anywhere between like 10 to 15% body fat. This is where you produce the most testosterone, this is where your hormones are the most optimal, this is where you feel the most athletic, energetic and alive, and it's pretty much sustainable, right? Below 10% body fat, it gets a little bit tedious, it gets a little bit wrecking on your testosterone levels. Of course, not as much as being an overweight 25% or 30% plus body fat individual. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. And if you happen to be at this place right now, keep watching this video, because I'm about to help you on how to get rid of those extra pounds and what other metrics can help you actually, if you track them and if you improve them, help you efficiently and sustainably lose that extra fat, so you don't have to bother with that for the rest of your life. That would be the goal. We want permanent solutions. We don't want 90-day shredding challenges. We don't want big booty boot camps and 75 hard and all that bullshit. We want permanent solutions for your health. But how do we achieve that, right? How do we actually get there? So the thing is over here is that we don't want to solely be focused on your body weight. So forget about weight loss. Start thinking of this as fat loss, right? So you want to make sure that whenever you're dropping weight, whenever you are standing on the scale, you actually lost fat, not muscle mass. So you appear tighter, you appear leaner, you appear more toned. You know, many of you are using this word toned, but toned just means that for the same amount of muscle mass, you have less body fat covering it. So there is more muscle definition, which makes you appear toned. Right? It's not about what exercises you're doing, it's not about what type of cardio you're doing, it's about generally what body fat percentage do you have, how to measure this, and what else is covered by body composition, because body composition is not only body fat. This is the proportion of body fat, skeletal muscle mass, and it doesn't mean that at 15% body fat your life will just suddenly change, because a 15% body fat person with low muscle mass is generally less healthy than a 15% body fat individual with higher muscle mass, because muscle mass over the age of 35 starts deteriorating by 3 to 8% every decade, and this later on causes balance issues, fall in our, like, problems with your movements, problems with your bilateral balance, problems with your motoric functions. So the thing is that muscle loss, so-called sarcopenia, is a serious thing, and also higher skeletal muscle mass is a net positive on your metabolism, because then you will be burning more calories per hour. So 1 pound of muscle takes tons of calories to maintain for your body, and the good thing about this is that if you're more muscular, you can get away with eating a little bit more food, like higher portions, right? More energy throughout the entire day, and you can still stay lean. And so you can actually enjoy eating and not starving yourself. Why it is important to enjoy eating, right? Because some of you are saying that I want a strict diet, I want to get rid of the fat, no matter what it takes, beast mode. The thing is, life is not beast mode, right? If you want to be a balanced, happy, and successful individual, you can't just go beast mode all the time. You have to be wholesome. You have to be generally useful and helpful to people. So if you're always going on beast mode, you will be pretty much irritable, and your cortisol levels, your stress hormone levels will super high. And the problem with that is, if you live in a high stress environment, if you create a high stress environment for yourself, and you know your long-term happiness, your serotonin receptors are not satisfied, right? Then you will first not stay consistent, and you just won't be happy, right? And you don't want that. So instead of going beast mode all the time, you want to be consistent, and that includes eating your favorite foods. And it's much easier to eat your favorite foods, sometimes higher calorie ones, sometimes a little bit, you know, things that people would call cheat meals, right? This is part of the plan. This is part of the ideal plan for longevity, right? And if you have more muscle mass, you can enjoy them more often. So that's just a life hack. Just increase your skeletal muscle mass a little bit, just putting on 10 to 15 pounds of lean muscle. And I'm not talking about mass gain, I'm talking about 10 to 15 pounds of lean muscle, without the water being accounted for, without the additional glycogen being accounted for, without the additional fat that you might gain being accounted for. I'm talking about 10 to 15 pounds of dry lean muscle mass. It means a huge difference. It means enormous amount of difference, how much it can mean for you. So right, Body fat and skeletal muscle mass are the two most important components of body composition. How do you measure your body composition is, well, there are two most accurate ways of measuring that, and everything else in between is kind of like deceiving, distracting. So number one is a DEXA scan. Get a DEXA scan before your health transformation, halfway through it, and right after that, just to know where your metrics are going and if everything is on the right track. DEXA scans today are the most available forms of measuring your body composition. So putting together a whole analysis for you, like in which area of your body, how much fat do you have and how much lean muscle mass you have. And a couple of months down the line, you look at it again, you do another scan, and you see, okay, do I have more skeletal muscle mass? Do I have less body fat? Is it trending towards the right direction? And by the end of your transformation, you just do it again as a form of validation that, okay, I went from 27% body fat to 11% body fat in this much time, I have lost this much fat, and I have gained this much muscle, or I have preserved this much skeletal muscle mass. So right now, this is how my proportions are looking like, and this is my body composition at the moment. The other most accurate way is actually, you might be laughing at me, but it's true, mirror selfies. So when you stand in front of the mirror, you take a picture from the front, from the side, from the rear, right? You will know if your body composition improved or not. If you appear tighter, leaner, yes, it improved. If not, then probably it has not improved and it's not trending towards the right direction. Why am I saying that everything else in between is a distraction? Because they are not accurate. You don't really see it with your own eyes, and whenever you are using like clippers or that kind of sitting in a tub of water, body fat measurement and stuff like that, that's not accurate, because if you're not scanning your body in some shape or form, you don't know the exact metrics, because your skin is not equally thick on all areas of your body. Your body fat distribution will never be even. So you might lose body fat from your chest faster than, for example, from your lower abs, right? For majority of men, we have like 2 or 3 major body fat distribution types. Either your lower abs, or like your belly, right? Or your chest, or your thighs and glutes. These are the main types, and it depends on hormonal profile, it depends on genetics, right? That's something that you cannot change, but you can definitely change the overall amount of body fat in your body. And if you lose enough body fat, if you are approaching 10 to 15% body fat enough, believe me, your belly will go down, your chest fat will go down, and your thigh and glutes fat, so that big fat ass, that will also go down. Right? So there's no such thing as local fat burning, but fat will burn everywhere from every areas of your body, just not evenly. So there might be some stubborn areas where it goes away from last, but it goes away either way. You just have to stay consistent for long enough to get rid of the body fat, and you ultimately have a healthier body composition that's not damaging your organs, that's not slowing you down, that's not causing you high blood pressure, and that won't put you into a pre-diabetic state, right? So use every weapon that you can fighting against obesity, because ultimately this by itself adds 10 to 20 years to your life, right? So first one, crossed out, body composition, one of the most, if not the ultimately most important metrics. That's why I'm going super heavy on body composition and being accurate measurements about this, because it's a very powerful indicator of how long and how quality of a life you can expect to live. All right, but the next metric is drifting a little bit away from body composition. That's your resting heart rate. And usually, I mean the sleeping resting heart rate. So for example, when you go to sleep, and if you happen to have any devices, an Apple Watch, a Hoop Band, an Oura Ring, or any of these modern health trackers, you will be able to see your resting heart rate. So the number of heartbeats per minute meanwhile you're asleep, right? So generally, the higher your movement stats are for the day, so the more steps you're taking, the more you're moving, the more you spend active, the lower your resting heart rate will be. And that's a huge life hack, because it helps you with deep sleep, and also this helps you with longevity. This contributes a lot to your longevity, and usually those people who can keep their sleep or sleeping heart rate, resting heart rate, their RH are below 60 beats per minute every single night consistently, those are the people who are more likely to live longer than 85 years. Because when your heart is so chill that it can rest, you look at it as if you had a finite amount of heartbeats left for your life, right? Or a finite amount of blood that you can pump through your system, a finite volume, right? If during rest, if it is rushing, so if it is not stopping meanwhile even you're resting, probably your heart, the heart muscle, because that's also a muscle, it's not the same type as your skeletal muscle, but your heart muscle will expire at some point. And if you overwork it by being overweight, by being obese, and by being inactive, right, your heart will work so much just to sustain you, to sustain your body weight, to sustain that mass, and to sustain you, or to make up for the lack of movement, right? You will abuse your heart, and it will work so much that it will hurt, and you will then probably leave the surface of this planet sooner, and you don't want that, right? So resting heart rate is very important, and you can optimize that with more movement, more exercise, just living a more active lifestyle generally during the day. And just to give you some actionable advice, if you want to do this passively without scheduling any workouts, without scheduling any cardio sessions, I highly recommend you to invest in a standing desk or a treadmill desk, so you can keep going, you can keep getting your steps in, meanwhile you're taking calls, participating in meetings, doing your deep work sessions, whatever. Insane amounts of steps can be accumulated throughout the day if you have a treadmill desk, or if you just generally have a standing desk, which improves your posture, right? And also helps you to burn more calories throughout the day, and just to keep your heart a little bit more active meanwhile you are awake. So when you are asleep, it will be more chill, and ultimately you will live longer. Alright, the third metric is respiration during sleep. So on average, the healthy range is very wide, right? They say a healthy adult human should take 12 to 18 breaths per minute. But I would say the closer it is to 12, 13-ish, probably the healthier you are. So just keep in mind, this also has a lot to do with your lung capacity, with your blood oxygen levels, and we will get there very soon, your VO2 max, and basically how active you are during the day. So it's pretty much correlated with your heartbeat stats, your resting heart rate, so your resting respiratory rate. Meanwhile you sleep, you can also measure it with your health tracking tools. For example, our clients, they measure it with their O-ring. We measure basically pretty much everything with their O-rings, because once you start working with us, Demi Cycle Protocol, we order an O-ring for you, we ship it out to your address, and you can use it right away to get accurate data on your sleep, on your respiratory, and your heart metrics, and also your movements. And okay, now we got to the point where we can finally talk about blood oxygen levels and movement. So the fourth metric is VO2 max, definitely. So maximal amount of blood oxygen circulating in your bloodstream, and how do you improve that? So there are so-called VO2 max workouts, many different variations, but what really matters is how fast the oxygen, the nutrients are circulating in your bloodstream, and how efficiently you can use the oxygen that you're breathing in. Basically, this is a blood and lung capacity metric, which ultimately, I think this will be a secret weapon, and it will gain a lot of popularity over the next decade as more and more people will be focused on longevity. Living to 100 years, this won't be a foreign concept for most people anymore. And I think it's definitely possible without any kind of special medication, vaccines, or $2 million health protocols. It's very simple. You just want to practice more lung capacity enhancing workouts, right? Because everybody, it's popular in the health community as well to train chest, to train biceps, triceps, whatever, but few people are actually training their lungs, right? Not everybody is a swimming athlete, not everybody is a singer or performer, right? So it's not relevant for most people to train their lungs in an everyday life context. But in a longevity context, the best thing you can do today is to train your lungs with VO2 max workouts. You can go the fun way, but it might be a little bit difficult for you in the beginning. Let's say you are jumping in an Olympic swimming pool and you try to swim a length without coming up above the water. This could be a good challenge for your VO2 max, so to train your lung capacity. Another thing that you could do is just step on a elliptic trainer, treadmill, or just find your favorite cardio activity and do that for 1 minute straight at your maximum heart rate, at as intense as possible. Take your maximum heart rate from your health tracking watch or ring or whatever you have, right? Write it down and take like 70 to 80% of that. And then do that same movement, the same type of cardio activity for 20 to 30 minutes straight at 70 to 80% of your max. That's amazing for lung capacity. Usually that's considered zone 4 cardio, and it's primarily not for losing fat. Of course, it burns a hell lot of calories, but it's primarily for making your lungs more durable and your heart healthier. So that's amazing for longevity. If you want to take it towards like a next level, you can try the Norwegian VO2 max when you're going for 2 minutes at like 85, 90 or even 95% of your max heart rate. Then you are going back to walking like zone 2 for about 4 minutes, and then you're doing 2 minutes of very intense 85 to 95% again, and you're jumping back to like 60, 50% in forms of walking or just like a cool down exercise in between for 4 minutes. You repeat this for 4 to 5 cycles, and well, first you will be absolutely gassed out, but it's incredibly rewarding. You keep burning fat afterwards, and it improves your VO2 max massively, it improves your lung capacity massively, and I genuinely believe it could add another 15 years to your lifespan. If you practice this regularly, about 2 to 3 times per week, you don't need more than that. So this is about lung capacity, this is about VO2 max and how you make it fun and the different methods that you can apply for actually bulletproofing your lungs. Okay, what is the next one? All right, the next health metric is of course movement metrics. How much intense movements are you doing and how much zone 2 like walking type of cardio activity you do on a daily basis. I'm genuinely convinced, after all the studies I have went through, after all the client experiences, and after all my personal experience, the sweet spot for longevity should be about 150 minutes of intense exercise on a weekly basis, so about 2.5 hours of intense, let's say, resistance training. It could be calisthenics, you know, push-ups, pull-ups, whatever, bodyweight movements, or it could be resistance training with resistance band, or just lifting weights at the gym. All of these are amazing forms of resistance training, and if you are doing it intense enough, 150 minutes per week should be more than enough to go through all of your muscle groups twice per week, so with high frequency and enough intensity to make them stronger, to make them grow, to make them develop until the next week, okay? So this is how you apply progressive overload, and it's incredibly healthy for you if you are not doing too little or too much of this. Of course, if you want to be a professional powerlifter like I used to be, or you want to be a bodybuilding athlete, you know, a world-class bodybuilder, probably you shouldn't be watching this video. You should be watching a sport-specific channel instead, because that's all about strength, that's all about muscle, and I absolutely respect that, but that might not be the most optimal for longevity. As a healthy bodybuilder or a healthy powerlifter, you can still live like to a good 70, 80 years, right? There are several examples of that, especially from back from the 70s when the health and longevity and athleticism was still part of the bodybuilding scene to some extent. So for example, Arnold Schwarzenegger is still alive, Frank Zane is still alive. A couple of Arnold's friends were still alive a couple of years ago and they lived to like 75, 80 years old. So right, longevity was there. Today's professional bodybuilding might not be the, well, most longevity focused. Hopefully there will be a shift in the coming years. But what really matters is here we are just talking about longevity and how to live the longest and most quality life possible. And for that, 150 minutes of intense training on a weekly basis will be completely enough. Another movement stat that is very important here is daily step count, zone 2. So basically, the sweet spot, I would say, which is sustainable for most people, especially those high-level corporate executives and entrepreneurs who are working with us, Demi Cycle Protocol. For these guys, I would say the most sustainable is 6,000 to 8,000 steps per day. Given that the average person takes less than 4,000 steps per day, 6,000 to 8,000 is already a huge jump. You don't have to necessarily believe that everybody should take at least 10,000 steps per day. Of course, that's amazing later down the line when you're already into the habit. But if you haven't built the basics yet, why do you want to build a castle, right? If you can't build a cottage yet, right? Why do you want to build a big ass fortress, right? So start with the basics, walk 6 to 8k steps a day, and later on increase. So just keep your baseline at a reasonable level, which is still high, right? Keep your standards high, and later on you can raise them even higher. But you can't start your day one at the spot where someone else's day 100 or day 1000 is, right? I don't expect you to walk 15,000 steps per day as I did back then in the peak of my cut, right? Because it was, so it is followed by, or this followed 6 months of cutting, right? Starting from 6,000 steps per day, building up through the entire 6 months when I lost 50 pounds of body fat. I built it up from 6,000 steps per day to 15,000 steps per day. I can't expect you to do 15,000 on the first day, and you can't expect it from yourself either, right? That wouldn't make sense. So keep in mind, when you are comparing your own movement metrics to others' movement metrics, you won't start at the top, right ahead, especially if you're not used to intense movement or not even used to walking significant amount per day, right? Your heart will be rushing, you will be catching for breath in the beginning, and that's okay. Just be consistent with it, just keep going, because that will take you further. And it might be a little bit intense in the first couple of weeks or months, but later on it will keep rewarding you for life. And if you are willing to make this sacrifice, right, you're willing to make this commitment at the beginning to change a couple of things about your lifestyle and your habits in return for living to 20 or 25 years longer, how awesome that would be. That this is all it takes. That I sometimes put a zip on my mouth and shut it when I want to eat something that would be too much for me for that day. And I am able to change my circumstances. I'm able to change my lifestyle and my habits in order to live 20 to 25 years longer. And all it takes for me is 6 months to become unrecognizable. This is the mantra you should be telling yourself. All it takes is 6 months of habit accumulation that I keep for the rest of my life, right? It's not about 6 months of shredding challenge or whatever that's not sustainable. You're talking about sustainable lifestyle and habits, right? And once you get to the point where walking 6,000 to 8,000 steps per day and exercising intense 150 minutes to 2.5 hours per week is natural for you, if you want, you can build on top of that, or you can just stay satisfied and keep improving and tweaking things about your health and your physique and always tracking it, but not the neurotic way. Just keeping basically healthy lifestyle filled with happiness, joy, enough serotonin, happiness hormones, low stress, low cortisol, high testosterone. So if you live this type of lifestyle, you are more likely to live long and stay useful for decades to come. So basically, you satisfy the requirements of a happy life of a man, right? Because this is how we are, this is how our brains are wired, this is what our purpose is in a nutshell, right? And if you can live for that purpose, if you can live long and vital enough for this purpose, that's your key to happiness. This is how I could summarize it, and this is something that our clients found out to be true as well. So this is why we resonate this message, right? Feel free to disagree with this, but for us, these are just facts. So, and you see, it doesn't require like a crazy amount of movement, just 6,000 to 8,000 steps per day, 2.5 hours of intense workout per week, and that's all it takes for you to get the best shape of your life and to sustain that for decades longer and potentially to live to 100 years, right? In an active way, not being a burden for your kids and your grandkids. It's very important. You are not a burden, you are a useful person, and you can sustain it for decades to come. All right, and now that we talked about movement metrics as well, the sixth and final health metric for today is sleep metrics. because sleep and longevity has more connections than you ever thought. So it's not only about your recovery, it's not only about your energy levels, it's actually about how well you can recover from every processes and how well your body builds its immune system and its resilience against any kind of damages. This is what sleep supplies you with, and it prevents a lot of diseases that could be damaging you permanently later on in your life. So it's not necessarily the quantity that you're sleeping, but the quality of it. But how do we determine if your sleep is quality or not, right? There are several different sleep metrics that can be tracked by devices, and this is why we're getting an Oura ring to each of our clients, because basically in the long term, these tracking devices and daily feedback can save your life. You are seeing your heart rate, you are seeing your respiration, your daily movement, but what most important is you see the different sleep stages, you see the different sleep statistics, which tell a lot about your body. It's so interesting. Like, this is one of my favorite things. Every single morning when I wake up and I get to look at my client's sleep stats, I always discover something new and how certain things are interconnected. And whenever I'm giving them feedback, it's so great that we can solve serious health problems, for example nighttime urination, without having to take drugs for your prostate, because we discovered some things that worked for them to stop nighttime urination which we implemented in their pre-bed routine, in your bedtime protocol, and it just worked, right? It turned out there was nothing wrong with their prostate. So and many different things. This was just one example that we recently noticed with a couple of clients. But the thing is that quality sleep saves your life and helps you live longer, because you can see, for example, from these movement tracking devices, you can see how much time you spend in a deep sleep phase. Deep sleep is responsible for your muscle, bone and joint recovery. How much time, how many percentages of your total sleep are you spending in the REM sleep phase, or REM, rapid eye movement. This is responsible for dreaming, information processing, focus during the day, learning new things, right? Mental clarity and keeping your ability to remember. It helps to prevent Alzheimer's. It helps a lot if you can keep your REM sleep above 22% per night. This is just an example, right? But there are so many different health metrics that are worth tracking, that this is why I just put them under like one big umbrella of sleep metrics, because as long as you have an Oura ring and you see all of these different metrics, you can find out a lot about your sleep and how much does it contribute to your longevity right now. Is it drawing it back a little bit? Is it pushing you forward, right? Are you feeling energetic during the day? So many different things that it influences. And with that being said, if you are able to track these 6 different health metrics, and to be honest, tracking these, most of these are not supposed to be tracked on a daily basis, right? But if you have a device, you can track your heart rate, respiration and sleep stats basically on a daily basis. And if you can keep up with the step counts, even better, and the daily and weekly movement targets, basically you are sorted for life. You just only have to get consistent with these and find those ideal exercises and ideal routines that suit your lifestyle, no matter where you're traveling and how many times, what kind of business conferences you're attending, or what kind of family events you have to participate on, right? And no matter how your lifestyle is being built up, we always base things around your lifestyle design, right? And I think these 6, and also based on client experiences, these 6 health metrics are pretty easy to track. And if you put a high priority also in your body composition as the first metric, you will always be able to keep yourself lean while still enjoying life, still eating your favorite foods and not counting a single calorie. I don't know if you noticed, but in this video I haven't even mentioned calorie as a metric, not even once as a relevant metric here. Why? Because you don't need to count calories to live to 100 years old, happily and healthy and in the best shape of your life. You can ask some of the centenarians still alive today, how many of them tracked calories through the 100 years, to the 10 decades they have lived, a decade of a decade, right? They lived so many years, right? And those who are still active and still, can move and talk and do all the things and are happy, ask them how many calories they have counted in their lives. I'll be waiting. Okay, right? So health and longevity is not about counting calories, right? It's not about being obsessed with getting to 5% body fat. Once you can get to a healthy level, usually for men it's 10 to 15% body fat, you can maintain high testosterone levels, low stress hormone and cortisol levels, you will be doing amazing, right? That's all you need. And if personally you need help with that, feel free to hit us up in the description below. There is a link where you can book a free call with us, and we will craft up a custom game plan for you based on the questions that you're filling out, based on your lifestyle and different factors. We will come up with a roadmap for you the next 6 months, how it would look like for you to get in the best shape of your life, double your natural energy levels, and get to consistent 85 plus sleep scores on the Aura Ring without having to take sleep drugs, sedatives, abuse stimulants, or counting calories, or training more than 2 to 3 hours per week. But only book this call if you are ready to make a change, ready to make a commitment right now. You're not the type of guy who needs to think about something. Your health is not something to think about, especially not if you're 40 or 50 years old already. So you have been making this decision for years and decades right now. If you've been neglecting your health lately, you have been deciding besides in the favor of neglecting your health every single day. So what decision are you waiting for? What do you need to think about, right? It doesn't really make sense. So if you are the type of guy who would rather procrastinate or blame things on his genetics, blame things on the circumstances, and still need to think about whether to not die before 100 years old or to die before 100 years old, if this is something that you need to think about, then get your brain in shape first. Don't book a free call yet. So that would probably mean that you're not ready yet for this, and just let's not waste each other's time. But that doesn't mean that you're a lost cause. Of course, I want to help you as well. So watch my previous videos where I help you with mindset, where I help you with further educating you about health, right? And getting you and your brain, your mindset, to that level where you're ready to start working with us and absolutely crush your health goals in 2024 and beyond without any kind of restrictive dieting, only focused on sustainable lifestyle habits that you can maintain for a lifetime. And if you enjoyed this video and you also want to live to 100 years while still being strong, healthy, useful, and sexually active, then just press like on this video, subscribe, and share this with your friends, family members, colleges, teammates, employees, and whoever is important to you in your life, and whoever you also want to live to 100 years old while still staying useful, happy, and balanced. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.